No one screamed when the first grave opened. That was what made it wrong. The earth simply parted, slowly, carefully, as though something beneath it was being allowed to breathe again. The sound was soft, like wet cloth tearing. If you weren't already awake, you would have slept through it. But the dogs heard it. Every dog in Umudike village lifted its head at the same time and went silent. If you have ever felt fear without knowing why, the kind that crawls up your spine before your mind catches up, then you already understand what happened next. Because silence, when it arrives too early, is never empty. Somewhere in the darkness, something that had been buried decided it was done waiting. This is one of those stories people swear never happened, yet no one dares to deny, not out loud. At 2:11 a.m., beneath the Iroko tree at the old cemetery, the first coffin was empty. By 2:14, the second grave had opened. By 2:30, the ground across the burial land of Umudike was shifting in small, patient movements. Not violent, not angry, deliberate, as if the earth itself was correcting a mistake. Nkiru was awake before the roosters. She always was. Old age had taken her strength, her husband, and most of her joy, but it had sharpened her listening. When you live long enough in a village like Umudike, sleep becomes dangerous. Too many things happen while people pretend not to see. She felt it before she heard it. A pressure, like the air had thickened inside her room. She sat up on her raffia bed, her bare feet touching the cool mud floor, and whispered a name she had not spoken in years. Chukwu. Outside, the wind passed through the palm trees without sound. That was when she knew. The dead had moved. And when the dead move quietly, it is never for themselves. By morning, the truth could no longer hide. Women ran toward the cemetery with wrappers half-tied. Men followed in silence, machetes hanging uselessly at their sides. Children were dragged back by their arms, crying because they did not yet understand what they were being protected from. Every grave was open, not destroyed, not broken, opened. And every coffin, old, new, cracked, sealed, was empty. Someone whispered it first, then another, then the word spread like sickness. The dead are gone. But Nkiru shook her head. No, she said quietly, the dead have left. There is a difference. This is WhisperTales. Stories whispered where silence listens. And in villages like Umudike, silence always listens. The elders arrived last. They always did. Chief Okori walked slowly, leaning on his staff carved with symbols no one remembered the meaning of anymore. His eyes moved too quickly, not over the graves, but over the people watching him. Fear had a way of revealing old lies. What you see here, he said, raising his voice, is a disturbance, nothing more. A lie spoken too late, because someone screamed. Not from the cemetery, from the village. From the village, a woman named Ifunanya came running, her wrapper slipping from her waist, her face white beneath her dark skin. "My husband!" she cried. "He is gone!" Before anyone could ask questions, another voice joined hers, then another. By noon, 6 people were missing. By sunset, 12, and every house they vanished from had the same thing left behind. Red earth, wet, cold, smeared across thresholds like fingerprints. That night, nobody slept. Oil lamps burned low. Prayers were spoken without faith. Children were held too tightly. Men sat awake, pretending to guard doors they already knew would open if called, because that was the part the elders had never told them. The dead do not break doors, they invite. At exactly midnight, the sound came. Footsteps, not running, not dragging, walking, measured, certain. Nkiru sat upright in her hut, heart steady, hands trembling. She had heard those footsteps before, many years ago, on a night the village had sworn never to remember. And as the sound passed her doorway without stopping, she whispered the truth into the darkness. It has begun again. Long before Umudike had electricity, long before the church arrived, before the school, before the road, there was an agreement. Not with gods, with the land. The earth asked for balance. The village promised remembrance. The dead would be honored, their names spoken, their stories carried, their bones left in peace. As long as that happened, the living would be protected. But generations passed, space ran out, and fear learned how to bargain. The elders began to bury the wrong people. Not criminals, not strangers, but inconvenient lives. Women who asked questions, men who refused orders, children born at the wrong time. They told themselves the earth would not notice. They forgot one thing. The earth does not forget. It waits. Somewhere between fear and exhaustion, someone knocked. Not hard, not soft, 3 times. Nkiru stood. Her legs protested, but she ignored them. When she opened her door, no one stood there. Only footprints, leading away, toward the cemetery. And then she heard it, not with her ears, but inside her chest. A pulling, a calling. She closed her door, sat back down, and spoke aloud so the spirits would hear her clearly. "You will not take me quietly," the wind answered, rustling her roof. "This is not a story told to comfort you. WhisperTales never are. They are told to remind you of what happens when silence is mistaken for forgiveness." By the 3rd night, the village had lost 27 people. No struggle, no bodies, only new graves, freshly sealed, names carved deep and clean as if the stones themselves had learned new hands. Nkiru walked to the cemetery at dawn. No one stopped her. They were too afraid to follow. She stood before the newest grave and felt the earth pulse beneath her feet. Slow, steady, like a heartbeat. "You are taking the wrong ones," she said. The ground shifted, then stopped. "You already did," she corrected herself. A whisper rose, not from one place, but from everywhere. "We are taking what was owed." Her knees weakened, but she did not kneel. "Then take the truth too," she said. The wind died, and for a moment the entire village felt it, that weightless pause before something irreversible. Some stories are not meant to end neatly, like some are meant to follow you, into the dark, into sleep, into memory. That is the promise WhisperTales makes, whether you want it or not. The elders tried to flee that night. Chief Okori did not make it past the square. They found his staff at the cemetery gate the next morning. No body, just earth, pressed flat, satisfied. By the 7th night, only a handful remained. Nkiru was one of them. She returned to the cemetery one final time. The oldest grave, the one beneath the Iroko tree, was open again, waiting. She stepped inside without fear, because fear is useless once truth has arrived. As the soil closed above her feet, a final whisper passed through Umudike. Balance restored, silence returned, and from that night on, no one in Umudike ever buried the dead without saying their names out loud, because some graves are not for the dead, and some debts are collected slowly. If you felt that story watching you as much as you watched it, if silence feels heavier than it did before, then you already understand. This is WhisperTales, where shadows speak, where silence remembers, and where some stories never really end.